Hey guys, Elon here from Inside Fighting, and there is one martial art that for some reason lately, ever since I did the Goju video, I have been bombarded with comments to cover. Uechi Ryu. Now look, if I said that wrong, you can hate me, because again, pronunciation is not my strong point. Let's just jump in.
Pow pow, inside fighting, yeah, dangerous martial arts. Pow pow, ooh ah.
All right, so before we get started, as always, I'm going to promote InsideFightingStore.com. If you want to support the channel, that's the way to do it. I got all types of stuff on there. I got t-shirts, paintings, mugs, but more importantly, I got instructionals. Very good instructionals. One's on Dos Paris, the other one's on street self-defense, and more to come soon. If you don't like it, let's say you buy one. Let's say you buy one of these instructionals, all right? And then you decide you don't like it, I'll give you all your money back. That's how I'm playing this card. So support the channel. And if you don't want to do that, just like and subscribe and share that and comment and all that stuff. That would be more than enough too. All right, let's jump into Uechi Ryu. Now, this system, you know, I was talking about Nahate systems earlier, and this one is a Okinawan style of karate, really founded in the 1950s. What's cool about this one is it has a Chinese influence. There's certain things that are unique about Uechi Ryu right off the bat. Again, if I'm mispronouncing it, just hate me deep down and comment below. Let's just look at some of the sparring, I guess. There's a lot of sparring videos here that I have. And there's also conditioning videos because let's be honest, that's like 90% of this system. Just to start off, the system has 8 katas. Sanshin kata is the main one that they focus on, which is a foundational kata in a lot of systems, but it really is an emphasis in Uechi Ryu. But there's certain things that are unique about this. They seem to take what I think they would consider a more natural stance with their hands and with the way they train their positions. It almost looks like it's intended to be a passive, you know, I talk about the passive protective stance. You want your hands up by your face open. They kind of have that. They do have more extension of their hands. They do keep their hands lower, not right by the chin. There's certain differences of opinion here that are clearly happening between me and them, but different than what you see in most karates, which is a traditional, which you still have here, but they seem to acknowledge the, hey, let's take an open-handed natural position here. You know, Kyokushin guys will put their hands up and will stand like fighters also because of all the sparring, and you'll see it in other systems too. But this just, that self-defense perspective was very clear right off the bat. Let's just jump right in. That's a crazy kick. I have to play that back. Okay, so black screen here, and we're going in for it. Pow! That's crazy. And you can see they spar. Now, the sparring has a lot of variety, and this is the main thing you'll notice about the system. They're, just like Goju, obsessed with conditioning, right? That's like a major part of the system is just being tough. And I love that. I think toughness, again, if you're going to have a skill tree of points for self-defense, toughness is an important skill tree. And it's one of the foundational things that keeps you going when things get hard in a fight. They're doing a lot of spinning kicks here, but their movement's really nice. Again, I always say this, like these Okinawan styles all have a similar influence of get your body tough. The body mechanics are similar among all of them. They'll trade in the pocket. Uechi Ryu is a very close quarter system. The axe kick is like a trademark of Kyokushin, but you see it here, you see it in Goju. Now, historically, and I may be wrong, I don't believe that this system really kicked high. I believe it was a very self-defense, close quarter system, in tight system, and they focused almost entirely on kicks below the belt. And if you look at their blocking mechanisms and all that, you see how they're kind of standing with their hands? Let's just go back here because this is important. Even when they spar, I notice that this is a major part of the influence of the system. Look at their hands. Their hands are always open, and their hands are in a position of like chest to head. And you'll see they play a lot with these. That's like their starting position, and they train a lot like that. A little bit different in that sense than Kyokushin because you'll see closed fists a lot of the time in Kyokushin and more like almost like a Muay Thai boxer type stance, or a more fight stance, not self-defense stance. They also do seem to focus on takedowns, which is nice, but all these spinning kicks, I believe, are an evolution of the system as it becomes popularized. Look at this. Just wanted you to hear it. Ladies and gentlemen, that's not me farting on camera. That's an old man kicking someone's leg. By the way, something I noticed about them, crazy. something I noticed about them is they condition their calves. Like this old dude is crazy how tough he is for like such a little dude. I guarantee you he can hurt you. But they don't do just quad conditioning. They do right now. They do calf conditioning. Look at that. Man, I guarantee you got to train that. Something with calf kicks that caught me off guard was you see them. You see calf kicks and you're like, oh, this is not a huge deal. I could for sure take that. And then you experience a calf kick and you're like, wow, I was not expecting it to feel that way. It is very, very shocking how much calf kicks hurt. I've been hit in the quad many, many times. We're talking about, low kick championships. That would be a much different fight or sport if they allowed calf kicks, because man, oh man, calf kicks suck. But they only became popularized recently in the UFC. We're talking about the past few years. And they've been in this system since the mid-1900s. So it's pretty fascinating to see how these things existed. Like I was watching a lot of conditioning from Uechi Ryu, and they legitimately kick the calf all the time. Let's just move on. Moving on. More sparring here. So if you look at this sparring, see again, this is what I'm talking about. Look at this hand position. This is a self-defense posture hand position. Open hand. Their hands are a little low for my liking. But again, that's because they're not going for the head with punches. And I've criticized Kyokushin for this. I've criticized, any system that does this. It's the one kind of drawback of not doing head punches. You can develop the habit of keeping your hands a little low. And then you get kicked in the head because these systems all allow head kicks and knees. And that backfires. But you see, they are throwing to the head, but not for contact. If you're going to throw to the head, it has to be for contact. If you don't want to, that's just my opinion, by the way, take it with a grain of salt. But if you don't want to do that, then open your hand and treat it like a smack and smack box. Because you're going to learn to at least control your range. When you learn to, this is a theory I have, when you train to intentionally miss, you are developing the habit to intentionally miss. Because how you train is how you fight. There's a beautiful little calf kick takedown there. Sweet. So if I'm intentionally training my body to not make contact in a high stress situation, I'll revert back to what I've been doing 10,000 times, which is pulling my punch. If I'm smacking and I'm at least learning to hit you in the head with it, even if it's not hurting you as much, in a high stress situation, the intensity of that smack can increase. Smacks hurt, by the way, as we all know from Power Slap, the dumbest sport in the world. But again, this is just a little criticism here that I see with open hand training, where they allow you to go hard to the body and then just place to the head. It's a little bit weird to me. And at that point, I'd rather just remove it entirely, because then at least it's out of sight, out of mind. And I'm not training a bad habit, as long as I'm conscious of that it can happen and I keep my hands up high. And I've talked about this in my Kyokushin video. There are ways to adapt, but to intentionally train to miss has always been a problem for me. And one of the reasons point fighting systems don't appeal to me as much, even though they do develop certain attributes like range management, distance covering, explosiveness that are very good. So as a drill, not a bad idea. But, and it's cool. They're allowed to grab the gi. They seem to be more aware of takedowns. So, one of my big criticisms of Kyokushin is that it's very rare that people spar with trips, takedowns, and all that stuff. You see that there's branches, offshoots, Ashihara, Enshin, which to me take Kyokushin to the next level. But a lot of these other systems like Goju, Uechi Ryu, they already have it in the system. And it's cool to see it implemented. Close quarter combat systems, if you look at their bunkai a lot of the time, they're already doing very close entry to elbows to control. They do all that stuff. They even do something that you see in Filipino martial arts, which is panantukan. You see empty hand Filipino martial arts. People have different names for these things. Popularized name is panantukan. There's also pangamot. But what we're learning to do is gunt a lot of the time. We're learning to parry. And as the punch is coming, I connect it to my elbow. Or as you punch, I'm countering at the same time and I'm hitting you in the bicep. You see a lot of this actually, oddly, in this system too. Again, this is a spar-heavy system from what I'm seeing, and a conditioning-heavy system, and a close-quarter system. What I will say is, body mechanic-wise, these guys have a whip. I love that traditional karate whip. It's a short hip movement that generates such immense torque, and it's in tight. Something that any martial artist can benefit from training. And this, by the way, Jesse Enkamp's video. So shout out to him for making it like 5 years old. But it's a beautiful display right here of conditioning, focus, technique. And having strong arms, by the way, in a fight is a superpower. I experienced that with Guru Darren when I don't know if you saw my Silat video, but that guy can break coconuts with his hands and forearms. When you're able to do that, you need less skill to take someone out. I'm not saying he's not skilled, but I'm saying your degree of skill that you need goes down because you could just hit somebody in the arm and break their arm even if they're blocking. You can hit them in the neck and you'll crash their clavicle. You know what I mean? So you just become a beast. There is, again, another element of fighting. Everyone always puts technique above everything. No, sheer power to generate power. Look at, Alex Pereira.
That's very impressive.
You look at Alex Pereira. Number one, he is incredibly talented. I made a little video about this. The guy can keep people right on the end of their punches so that he's right in range to counter. The way he handled Yuri, I feel like that was an evolution of him as a fighter. He looked incredible. But he has nuclear bombs in his hands and feet. When you have that kind of attribute, and we're talking about like skill sets you would put in to create a great street fighter, self-defense person, that's one of the tree lines I would fill up very, very high, is just sheer power. Power and toughness go a very, very long way. Power, toughness, conditioning. And if you look at these systems, especially these Okinawan systems, I'm not just highlighting this one in this case, Okinawan karates tend to highlight toughness, power, conditioning. And that's actually the core of what's going to keep you alive. Because street fighting over MMA or over combat sports is far more unpredictable. You don't know what the variables are going to be. And when you don't know the variables, your body just has to be able to handle an adrenal stress response, has to be able to handle pain, has to be able to handle all the unpredictable things that are coming at you and to keep going forward, regardless of what the threat is. You have to be mentally strong and physically strong. And that's what these karate systems develop. So again, not to be taken for granted. These are very, very good systems for developing those skill sets. This is an interesting one to me. I put this here because I was confused by the way they're sparring the tall guy, the super tall guy. See, he's doing the classic, like, let's just look at this hand position here, right? You see a lot of that, like his hands are just extended out. To me, this freeze frame right here, from a self-defense perspective, is not any situation I would want to be in. I would want to take my hands, let's say I'm the short guy or the tall guy, and I'd want to put them right by my chin. I'd want to tuck my chin straight down. I'd want to be looking at the person's chest, and I'd want to be a little bit lighter on my feet so that I could explode in. They have a very different approach. Again, I never say something's right or wrong. If it works for you, like this guy's 6 foot 702, so he's super tall. He's a giant. So if he wants to lean back, keep his hands out to keep range, that's fine. But you have people who are shorter guys, like a Tyson type, who can cover distance very fast. You look at James Vick getting knocked out recently in Karate Combat. If you haven't seen it, go on my Instagram at inside_fighting_podcast. Really cool content on there. That's very different than this channel. So check it out. But if you go on there, you'll see James Vick getting knocked out. He's the much taller fighter, but he kind of keeps range in this way, which opens him up to getting kicked in the head. And it's such a slick kick. You guys got to see it. So go on my channel, inside_fighting_podcast. Support Instagram or don't. So this is not something I would personally do or teach. And then he's doing these kind of hand movements, but this is play. And I'm going to get into a speech about what play is after. You can see they're just playing with range, but they're not trying to make contact. That he throws a hard kick, which is, and he's placing his kick there by the punch there by the face really fast. But the other guy's not committing and not going as hard as him. So you have one guy going for much harder contact than the other in a playful way because he's the master and he has massive range, but the other guy's more timid and scared, which is fine. There he's starting to give back what he's taking. But I have a theory. Never, and this is going to sound wrong, and I even tell it to my students, never overly respect your teacher. Never overly respect your coach in the sense that if they're going hard with you, you're not going to go hard back. Everyone is beatable, and a coach or a teacher may have knowledge over you. It doesn't mean that they have those other attributes, conditioning, toughness, age. You might be younger. And so if someone's pushing you and they want to test you in that way, don't back down. I have a very fight mentality when it comes to training martial arts. And I don't mean this in a bad way. I mean it in a way that if someone wants to test me, they will get what they wanted. I will fight back. If someone wants to train light, they will get what they wanted, which is I will fight light. I will always go at the pace of my partner. And I think that that's an important part of fighting. Like, you can't fight with fear. You can't fight with too much respect for the other person. It's still training for fighting. Unless you're doing it for an entirely different reason. Now, I do love flow training. I love going to jiu-jitsu and just flowing, not breaking my back and getting my arms cranked. But when I want to test myself, I go hard. I let my partner know, today I'm going hard. I want to test myself today. And they cannot respect me too much to the point where they're just scared when I'm rolling with them that I'm going to crank their arm or break their ankle. And then they're just defensive and tight, and there's no real training taking place. So, again, you have to believe in yourself when you're fighting. You have to be able to, see things and stay in the pocket and not be scared to get hit. And if you're rolling in jiu-jitsu, you have to know you can tap at any point, which means you can open up and explore and really go for things. So that's just my 2 cents about sparring. And I think that's the same guy. And here he's, maybe it is, I don't know, but this is much cleaner sparring right here. Nice kicks, retracted. You saw what I like about that? The kick retracts right back. You rarely see people kick like that where they retract. Again, the only thing I have here is the punches are not intended to make contact. He did there. But just, this is clean sparring. Again, I don't necessarily agree with the hand position. This almost has like a little bit of a hybrid of sport and full contact training. It's a little bit like older JKA karate competitions, which is cool to see. Those have gone out of existence. Sadly, what we have now is sport karate is just way too playful and way too like, oh, I touched you. But again, this looks different than what you would see Kyokushin sparring would look like. They're hopping, they're very light on their feet, they're more bladed, they're throwing one punch, they get the point. But again, this is exactly it. Look, they get punched in the face and then they're down on the ground, turning their back and covering. And that shows that they're not training enough. Like, as you can see right here, let's just look at this. See? You guys notice that? Gets caught in the face. Look at his reaction. He's already turning away, gives his back, holds his face. That's someone who has not stayed in the pocket training punches, because anyone who has done that knows they can't do that. You can't train to turn your back on someone, cover up your face, and be like, the ref's going to break up the fight. Don't worry, you're okay. That's a bad habit from either not training getting hit in the face or training point fighting, where you're like, oh, I'm going to get hit in the face, and then I know it's over, so I'm not just fully getting touched. And you develop that kind of response. Overall, incredible system. I like Okinawan karate systems. I think this one has a unique approach in the sense that it's very close quarter. It's very simple and basic. I think their bunkai, I think their approach to kata is very good. It's very direct. I think they have cool aspects that you typically find in any martial art, but you find it later in karate systems typically. You find it very early on in Filipino systems, which is the whole parry and attack at the same time. Counter mentality, gun mentality, which is I'm taking your fist and breaking it, or I'm breaking your bicep as you punch. Attack what's attacking me. I think they have that. And again, I like it because it's a close quarter system. My negatives of it, this kind of thing, which is chin up, hands out, which is a push mentality, which is a distance mentality, which opens up to getting KO'd. I like shoulders up. You look at like old school boxing. I look to the left because that's where I can see myself. But pretty much what I do is I believe in Philly shelling, looking at what's worked. Philly shell, hands up high, moving my head, constant movement. At least then there's a moving target and a lot tighter. And for the street, definitely, because I don't want to take any statistical chance. I want to be as statistically sound as possible. When I'm play fighting, sometimes I'll move, I'll come over the top. I'm playing here. I move, I jab, I hit. But when I'm street fighting, if something happens to me on the street, I'm not doing all that. What I'm doing is I'm literally going, hey, and I'm crashing in and I'm trying to grab you, control you, rake, get your neck. It's a whole different mentality. You can't spar like that. And I'm going to end on this note. Sparring is just another drill. It is not fighting, because sparring is at least not street fighting. It might be combat sport fighting. But what I'm developing in sparring are still just attributes. And that's what drilling is for. Drilling is for generating attributes. And so a lot of people say, oh, I could beat you in sparring, I could beat you in a fight. No. You might be able to beat me in jiu-jitsu. You might be able to even beat me in boxing. That doesn't necessarily mean you'll win a street fight against said person, whether that's me or whoever it is. Because what you're doing in those situations is playing in a different way. It is playing. It's very rare that you go into a boxing gym every day and just full force swing like an aggressive maniac trying to knock each other out. And if you are, you're going to have CTE very quickly and you're not going to be effective on the street. That's the truth. These guys who have gym wars, they just don't become effective. They lose their chin. They lose their ability to take a punch. And they also are just slower very, very quickly. It degenerates you. And so what sparring is meant to develop, just like any drill, people have to separate it. They have to stop thinking of it like a fight, start thinking of it like, okay, today I'm sparring in Muay Thai. What I wanted to see is how much can I know this guy throws a lot of rights. I'm going to practice slipping off to the left today, throwing an uppercut over top, seeing how I can counter. I know this guy has strong kicks. I'm going to practice checking a lot more today, making sure I'm turning out my knee, all the little things, you know what I mean? My footwork I'm going to play with today. But when a street fight happens, those aren't the things you're doing or worrying about. What you're worrying about is crashing into the person, destroying the person, and hitting them as fast and as hard as possible over and over and over, and then getting out. And if they have a friend, you're practicing on fighting two people. So it's a totally different mentality. It's much more aggressive. It's much less skillful, as crazy as that sounds. And it's much more about toughness, speed, power, all those things we're seeing in styles of older Okinawan styles, just like this. So yeah, very cool. All right, I hope you liked this random rant about not just Uechi Ryu, and again, sorry for butchering it, but karate in general. Thanks so much.